He's blamed for the deaths of 40 million people. Yet 1 in every 200 men alive today is his descendant. How did a starving outcast boy rise to build the world's largest empire, to uncover the unbelievable story of Genghis Khan? And improve your English. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell so you never miss our next story. It is said that he was responsible for the deaths of at least 40 million people. This number is hard to even imagine. It included men, women, children, and even animals. No one was safe. Great kingdoms fell. Beautiful cities were burned to the ground, and entire civilizations were wiped from the face of the earth. But how? How did a poor boy, born in a harsh and unforgiving land, become the most feared warrior in history? How did a simple child who started with nothing rise to control almost half of the world? This is the real story of Genghis Khan. It is a story of great power, of painful betrayal, of terrible bloodshed, and of a powerful destiny. And most importantly, listening to this story will help you improve your English. It will help you learn new words and understand how sentences work. So please listen carefully. If you feel comfortable, you can try reading the story aloud with me. This will help your pronunciation and your fluency. When you read, you can see how past tenses are used and how stories are built step by step. Let's begin our journey. Our story starts in the year 1162 in the cold, endless grasslands of Mongolia. Imagine a place with no big cities, no comfortable houses, and very little safety. Life there was incredibly hard. People lived in small, round tents called girs. They moved from one place to another, always searching for food and land. And very often, they fought each other to survive. Into this brutal world, a baby boy was born. His name was Temujin. This was the boy who would one day be known to the world as Genghis Khan. His father, Yasuge, was a tribal chief. He was a strong and respected warrior. Right when Temujin was born, his father had just won a battle against an enemy leader who was also named Temujin Uge. It was a tradition in Mongolia to name your son after a defeated enemy. It was a way to show that you had power over them. So the baby was named Temujin. This means that Temujin was not born into a world of peace. He was born into a world of war and blood. From the very first moment he opened his eyes, he had to be a fighter just to survive. The Mongolian plains were a merciless place. There were no cities, no schools, and no hospitals. There was only the wide-open land tribes that were often violent and winters that were freezing cold. If you were weak, you died. That was the simple, hard truth. If you were strong, you fought. Temujin grew up in a small family tent. He lived with his parents, his 3 brothers, his sister, and also a half-brother. They had very little food. They mostly drank milk from their horses and ate wild animals whenever they were lucky enough to catch them. There was one rule that everyone in Mongolia understood: if you are strong, you lead. If you are weak, you die. This simple rule would soon change Temujin's life forever. One day, when Temujin was only around 9 years old, something terrible happened. His father, Yasuge, was poisoned by his enemies. Yasuge had made a very big mistake. He had accepted food from a rival tribe. As soon as he ate the food, he fell to the ground. He started coughing up blood, and his whole body was shaking. He knew he was dying. In his final moments, he looked at his young son Temujin, and he said, "Son, you must be strong. You must never trust anyone. If you show that you are weak, they will kill you." And with those last words, his father died. Suddenly, Temujin, his mother, and his siblings were all alone. Their own tribe, their own people abandoned them. They betrayed the family of their dead leader. Temujin's mother, Hoelun, was a very strong woman, but nobody wanted to follow a widow and her small children. The tribe told them to leave. They threw them out, leaving them in the wilderness to starve. Now Temujin, his brothers, and his mother were like beggars. They had to live in the wild. They ate rats, birds, and even insects just to stay alive. The Mongolian winters were deadly. The cold was so intense, so painful, that their fingers would turn blue and their lips would crack and bleed. But through all this suffering, Temujin never forgot his father's final words. "You must be strong." And one day, something happened that would change him forever. It would turn the scared boy into a cold, hard survivor. Temujin had an older half-brother named Bektar. As the oldest boy, Bektar thought he was in charge. He was selfish. He would often steal food from the rest of the family, taking the best pieces of meat for himself and leaving only scraps for the others. Temujin hated him for this. One day, Bektar once again took their food for himself. Temujin's anger, which had been growing for a long time, finally exploded. His eyes turned dark. His heart felt like it had turned to stone. He quietly picked up his bow and arrow. He aimed it carefully at his own brother, and then he shot him. His own brother was dead. His blood spilled onto the cold ground. But Temujin felt no regret. He felt no sadness. He just looked at the lifeless body of his brother and said to himself, "If I want to survive, I must kill. If I want to have power, I must take it." On that day, the boy Temujin died, and a warrior was born. When he was about 15 years old, Temujin was captured by an enemy tribe. They tied him up with heavy wooden shackles like a collar around his neck and wrists, and they treated him like a slave. But Temujin was not an ordinary boy. He was patient. He waited for the perfect moment to escape. One night, when the guards were tired and sleepy, he saw an opening. He saw his chance. He grabbed a heavy wooden club, and with all his strength he smashed the skull of the guard watching him. He was free. He escaped into the dark night. He was barefoot. His feet were bleeding, and he was weak from hunger. But he ran. He ran through the freezing Mongolian plains. The cold wind felt like a knife cutting his face. His breath was short, but he did not stop. He would not stop. When he finally made it back to his mother, he was exhausted. He whispered to her, "Mother, I will never be weak again. I promise you, I will build my own tribe. I will take my revenge on those who have wronged us." From that moment on, Temujin's real journey, his path to power, had truly begun. Temujin had escaped from his enemies. He had killed his own brother. He had survived hunger, cold, and betrayal. But he was still alone. He had no army, no real power, and no tribe to call his own. But he had something that was even more important. He had a dream. He wanted to unite all the different fighting Mongolian tribes. He wanted to become the most powerful leader in the history of his people. But before he could rule, he knew he had to fight more battles, suffer more pain, and prove himself to everyone. Temujin knew he could not do this alone. He needed strong warriors by his side. He needed people who would be loyal to him. One day, he met a young warrior named Jamuka. They were the same age, and they were both very smart and very strong. They quickly became blood brothers. This was an important Mongolian tradition where two people would mix a little of their blood together in a cup and drink it. It was a promise to be loyal to each other forever, like real brothers. For a time, Jamuka and Temujin were inseparable. They trained together, they hunted together, and they dreamed of ruling the world together. But fate had other plans for them. At the age of 16, Temujin got married. His wife's name was Borte. She was beautiful, but she was also smart and strong, just like him. Borte believed in Temujin completely. She once told him, "You are different from all the other men. You are destined to be great." Her words gave him incredible strength and confidence. But their happiness did not last for very long. One night, while Temujin was away from his camp, a rival tribe called the Merkits attacked. They came in the dark, and they burned the tents, stole the horses, and they kidnapped Borte. When Temujin returned, he found everything he had was destroyed. His camp was in ashes, and his wife was gone. He fell to his knees in the dirt and clenched his fists so tightly his knuckles turned white. His heart burned with a terrible rage. "I will find you, Borte," he whispered to the wind, "and I will destroy those who took you from me." Temujin knew he needed help. He went to his old friend, his blood brother Jamuka. He also went to another powerful leader named Togrul Khan. "Fight with me," Temujin begged them. "Help me save my wife." They saw the fire in his eyes, and they agreed. With an army of 20,000 warriors, they rode across the Mongolian plains. They found the Merkit camp, and they attacked without mercy. The battle was brutal. Arrows flew through the sky like a dark rain. The sound of swords clashing and men screaming filled the air. Temujin fought like a wild beast, like a man possessed, cutting down anyone who stood in his path. The Merkits were completely defeated. Temujin killed their leader with his own hands, and he took back Borte. When he saw her safe at last, his heart softened. She ran into his arms and whispered, "I knew you would come for me." But Borte was carrying a secret. She was pregnant. Temujin did not know, and could never know if the child was his, or if it was the child of the Merkit leader who had captured her. But he made a decision. He accepted the baby boy as his own son. His family was together again. But this war, this victory, was only the beginning of a much longer and much bloodier story. Temujin and Jamuka had been as close as brothers. But as Temujin became more powerful and more respected, Jamuka started to feel jealous. Their ideas about leadership were also very different. Temujin believed in loyalty and discipline above all else. He treated all his soldiers equally, whether they were born noble or poor. But Jamuka believed in the old ways, where only nobles, the men from rich families, should have power. Soon their friendship broke apart. Mongolia became divided into two sides. On one side was Temujin's army made up of men who wanted change and a new way of life. On the other side was Jamuka's army made up of those who wanted to keep the old traditions. The two men who were once blood brothers now became bitter enemies. In the year 1186, their two armies met on the battlefield. Temujin had 20,000 warriors. Jamuka had 30,000. The battle was long and bloody. Temujin fought like a demon. His soldiers were incredibly loyal and disciplined. They moved together like a single force, attacking quickly and using smart strategies. For a moment, it seemed like Temujin was going to win. But then Jamuka used a trick. He had sent thousands of his warriors on a long path to attack Temujin from behind. Temujin's army was suddenly trapped. They were surrounded. They lost the battle. Temujin managed to escape with his life, but 10,000 of his men were captured by Jamuka. And then Jamuka did something truly horrific. He wanted to send a message. He tortured Temujin's captured soldiers. He boiled some of his enemies alive in big pots of water. He broke their bones, and he beheaded them. This cruelty was a terrible mistake. The Mongolian people saw what Jamuka had done, and they began to fear him, not respect him. Many warriors left Jamuka's side and secretly went to join Temujin. Temujin learned a powerful lesson from his defeat. He swore to himself, "I will never lose like that again." And he knew that next time he would return stronger and smarter. Temujin completely changed the way Mongolian warriors fought. He created a new kind of army, First, he valued loyalty over blood. Before Temujin, only nobles could become generals. Temujin changed this rule. He said, "It does not matter who your father is. If you are strong and if you are loyal to me, you will lead." This made the common warriors love him. They would fight and die for him. Second, he demanded discipline and unity. Mongols used to fight in small, disorganized groups. Temujin changed that completely. He organized his entire army into units of 10,000 and 10,000 men. They trained to fight as one large, coordinated body. Third, he focused on speed and fear. Instead of fighting face-to-face in long, drawn-out battles, Temujin trained his men to use fast attacks, trickery, and psychological terror. He turned his warriors into an unstoppable force, moving quickly and quietly like a pack of wolves. And soon, he would use this new army to take his revenge. Years later, Temujin returned to face Jamuka. This time, he had an unstoppable army. Jamuka's army, on the other hand, was not loyal. Many of his own warriors betrayed him and joined Temujin's side. Jamuka had no escape. In the end, his own men captured him and brought him to Temujin. Everyone expected Temujin to torture Jamuka, just as Jamuka had tortured his men years before. But Temujin did something that shocked everyone. He looked at his old friend, his former blood brother, and said, "You were once my brother. I will not make you suffer a painful death." Then he ordered a quick and painless death for Jamuka, a death that was considered honorable for a warrior. The Mongolian tribes saw this act of mercy, and they respected him for it. For the first time in history, all of Mongolia began to unite under one leader, Temujin. In the year 1206, all the Mongolian tribes gathered together for a great meeting. They officially chose Temujin as their great leader, their ruler of all. And they gave him a new name, a new title. They called him Genghis Khan, which means universal ruler. But Genghis Khan did not want to rule just Mongolia. He stood on a hill, looked out beyond the horizon, and whispered, "The world shall be mine." And with that single thought, the greatest conquest in the history of the world began. Genghis Khan knew that the richest land near Mongolia was China. At that time, China was not one single country. It was powerful, but it was divided into different kingdoms or dynasties. There was the Xia dynasty in western China, the Jin dynasty in northern China, and the Song dynasty in southern China. Genghis Khan decided to attack the Jin dynasty first. He had a personal reason. Years before, when he was just a young leader, he had sent a message to the Jin emperor asking to set up trade between them. The emperor had replied with an insult. He said, "You are just a barbarian. You are nothing compared to us." Genghis Khan never ever forgot an insult. He waited for years, planning for the right moment to get his revenge. In 1211, that moment came. Genghis Khan and his army of 100,000 warriors attacked the Jin dynasty. The Mongols moved like a storm across the land. They burned villages, they cut off food supplies, and they used terror to make people surrender without a fight. By the year 1215, they reached the capital city, which is modern-day Beijing. But the city had huge, thick walls, and the Mongols were horsemen. They were not used to attacking fortified cities. So Genghis Khan changed his strategy. He surrounded the city and blocked all food and water from getting inside. The people inside the city began to starve. He also used captured Chinese engineers to build huge siege weapons like catapults to break down the walls. He sent spies into the city to create chaos and fear among the people. After months of terrible suffering, Beijing finally surrendered. Genghis Khan and his warriors entered the city like avenging gods. Some say that over 1 million people were killed in the attack. The Mongols burned the city of Beijing completely to the ground. This was Genghis Khan's message to the rest of the world. No one insults the Mongols and survives. After destroying the Jin dynasty, Genghis Khan wanted to expand his empire to the west. At that time, the Khwarezmian Empire, which is in modern-day Iran, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan, was one of the richest and most powerful empires in the world. The ruler, the Shah, ruled over millions of people. At first, Genghis Khan did not want war. He wanted to trade. He sent a group of 500 Mongolian merchants to the Shah with a peaceful message. The message said, "Let us be partners. Mongolia and Khwarezm will trade in peace and friendship." But the Shah made a terrible, fatal mistake. He was arrogant. He ordered his men to kill all the merchants. Then he sent their heads back to Genghis Khan in a bag. This was a clear declaration of war. Genghis Khan was furious. This was the ultimate insult. In 1219, he gathered an army of 200,000 Mongols to destroy the Khwarezmian Empire forever. The Mongols moved with lightning speed, using their famous horse archery and their hit-and-run attacks. The Shah tried to fight back, but the Mongols were too fast, too disciplined, and far too ruthless. The most powerful cities of Khwarezm, like Samarkand and Bukhara, fell within days. Before burning the city of Bukhara, Genghis Khan stood in front of the captured people and said, "I am the punishment of God. If you had not committed great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me upon you." Over 1.5 million people were slaughtered. The Mongols burned cities, poisoned wells, and killed every single soldier they found. The Shah himself ran away like a coward, but Genghis Khan's generals hunted him down until he died alone on a small island. With the fall of Khwarezm, the entire Middle East learned to fear the name of Genghis Khan. By the year 1223, Genghis Khan's empire stretched all the way from China to Persia. But he still wanted more. His army marched towards Russia and Eastern Europe, defeating the armies of the Russians, the Hungarians, and the Bulgarians. But in 1226, something happened that forced Genghis Khan to return home. A small kingdom in western China. The Xia dynasty, ruled by the Tangut people, had betrayed him. They had promised to support him in his wars, but while he was busy fighting in the west, they stopped paying their tribute. Genghis Khan was incredibly angry. Even though he was now in his 60s, he personally led his army to attack the Tangut people. The Mongols completely destroyed their cities, burned their temples, and killed their entire royal family. By the year 1227, the Xia dynasty no longer existed. It was wiped off the map. It was during this final war against the Tanguts that Genghis Khan fell from his horse and was badly injured. Some historians say he never fully recovered from this fall. Others believe he was already sick, or was perhaps poisoned. In August of 1227, the great conqueror, the universal ruler, took his last breath. Before he died, he gave his final command. "Do not tell anyone about my death until we finish this war and destroy the Tanguts completely." Even in death, he was a warrior. His body was buried in a secret location. The Mongol soldiers killed anyone and everyone who saw the funeral procession to keep the location of his grave a secret forever. To this day, nobody knows where Genghis Khan is buried. The Mongols wanted to keep it a secret. Some stories say they had horses run over the grave to hide it. Other stories say they even changed the path of a river to flow over his tomb. Many people believe he is buried somewhere in a mountain in Mongolia, but no one has ever found it. The mystery remains unsolved. Even though his grave is unknown, Mongolia honors him today with a giant statue near the capital city of Ulaanbaatar. It shows him sitting proudly on his horse and is made of shining stainless steel. It is the biggest horse-riding statue in the entire world. Visitors can even go inside the statue and stand on the horse's head to see beautiful views of the surrounding countryside. This statue is a powerful symbol of Mongolia's history and its national pride. While Genghis Khan was a brutal conqueror on the battlefield, he also had a complex personal life, especially with his wives and children. We already know about Borte, his first wife. She was always his most trusted advisor and companion. Even though she was kidnapped by the Merkits early in their marriage, Genghis Khan loved her deeply. She gave birth to his 4 most important sons, Jochi Chagatai, Ogedei, and Tolui. Even though Genghis Khan always accepted Jochi as his first and true son, some Mongols always whispered that he was not the real father. They believed his father was the Merkit leader who had kidnapped Borte. This secret doubt created problems and tension in the family for years. Genghis Khan also believed that marrying women from different tribes would help him create alliances and control his vast empire. So every time he conquered a new land, he would select beautiful and intelligent women to become his wives or his concubines. He had many famous wives. There were Yesugen and Yesui, who were sisters from the Tatar tribe. There was Kulan, a beautiful woman from his old enemies, the Merkit tribe. There was Chaka, a Chinese princess, and Gorbesu, a Persian noblewoman. In total, Genghis Khan had over 500 wives and concubines. It is said that millions of people living today are his direct descendants. But no matter how many wives he took, Borte always remained his #1 wife, his most powerful queen. We often hear about his sons, but very few people know that Genghis Khan's daughters played a huge and very important role in his empire. Genghis Khan was not just a loving father, he was also a brilliant strategist. Instead of treating his daughters like ordinary women, he used them as powerful rulers. How did he do this? Well, whenever Genghis Khan defeated a powerful tribe or kingdom, he did not kill their royal family right away. Instead, he would say to the rival king, "You can keep your kingdom, but you must give your daughter to me or to one of my sons in marriage." This was a way to make sure that his family was connected to and controlled everything. But here is the genius part of his plan. Once the king gave his daughter to Genghis Khan, he was allowed to live as a puppet ruler. However, Genghis Khan would then send the new husband, the king, to go fight in the most dangerous parts of the Mongol wars. These kings would almost always die in battle. This meant that the kingdom was now officially ruled by Genghis Khan's daughter. The kingdom became a secure part of the Mongol Empire with no enemy kings left to rebel against him. Some of his most famous and powerful daughters included Alakai Beki. She ruled the Tangut people after Genghis Khan's conquest. She was loved by her people and even introduced new laws to help women. There was also Tolui Khatun. She was one of the most powerful women in Mongol history. After Genghis Khan's death, she helped control the entire empire while his son Ogedei was ruling. His daughters were often just as smart and just as ruthless as their father. They ruled with iron fists and made sure that no rebellion could rise against the Mongols. It is believed that Genghis Khan fathered hundreds of children in his lifetime. Today, scientists say that 1 in every 200 men in the world carries his DNA. Even though Genghis Khan died in 1227, his empire did not stop growing. Under his sons and grandsons, the Mongols conquered more land than ever before. A Mongol army led by Hulagu Khan, who was Genghis Khan's grandson, attacked Baghdad, the heart of the Islamic world. They destroyed the city completely, killing the last caliph. This event marked the end of the Islamic Golden Age. Another army led by his grandson Batu Khan attacked Russia, Poland, and Hungary. In 1241, they won the Battle of Legnica, defeating a combined army of European knights. The Mongols were ready to invade Germany and France, and it seemed like nothing could stop them. But then suddenly, the great Khan Ogedei died back in Mongolia, and the Mongol leaders had to return home to choose a new ruler. In 1271, another of Genghis Khan's grandsons, Kublai Khan, became the emperor of China. He created the Yuan dynasty, which was the first foreign dynasty to rule over all of China. He moved the capital to Beijing and ruled in a more civilized and organized way. Even though Genghis Khan was a ruthless conqueror, he also changed the world forever in many ways. First, he created the largest empire in history. His empire stretched from China to Europe, covering 22% of the world's land. No one before him or after him has ever ruled such a large territory. Second, he reopened the Silk Road. This ancient network of trade routes made trade between China, the Middle East, and Europe safe and easy. Because of the peace and security that the Mongol rule brought, travelers like Marco Polo could journey all the way from Europe to China. Third, he practiced religious tolerance. Genghis Khan allowed all religions to exist in his empire. He protected Buddhists, Muslims, and Christians. Unlike many other rulers of his time, he did not force people to change their beliefs. And fourth, he created a new system of laws. He created the Yasa Code, which was a strict set of laws for his entire empire. His laws were fair, but also very brutal. They ensured order and discipline across his massive lands. Genghis Khan started as a poor boy with nothing. He was betrayed, he was starved, and he was hunted, but he never ever gave up. He fought back. He united the scattered Mongol tribes, and he built the greatest empire in the history of the world. His life and his empire changed the world forever, and even today, hundreds of years later, millions of people are his descendants. The story of Genghis Khan teaches us a few powerful lessons. Never give up, no matter how hard your life gets. Think smart and use everything you have to your advantage. And remember that true power is not found in strength alone, but in strategy, discipline, and a clear vision for the future. Thank you for listening. I hope this story was interesting and helpful for your English learning journey. I look forward to seeing you in our next video. Goodbye for now.